The afternoon sun slanted through the dusty windows of Clarkston's oldest bar, painting amber stripes across the counter where a tired single father sat with his head in his hands. Roman Blake had never planned to step into a bar in the middle of the day, especially not on a Tuesday, but life had a cruel way of pushing even the strongest people toward the edges they swore they'd never reach. And today, Roman had reached his edge. His daughter's school had called that morning, telling him she needed a specialized learning program he couldn't afford. His boss had denied his request for extra hours, and the landlord had left a notice taped to his door reminding him rent was late. Again, as the weight of his world pressed down on his shoulders, Roman realized he had no one left to talk to, no one who understood what it felt like to try so hard and still watch everything slip through your fingers. He didn't know that someone else, someone just as lonely, had walked into that bar searching for a moment to breathe. Someone who, like him, had been carrying a life that looked perfect on the outside but felt painfully empty inside. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and unexpected connections, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Touch of Kindness. Your support helps these stories reach more hearts that need them. A quiet hum lingered in the air as Roman lifted his eyes, noticing a woman across the room. She wasn't dressed for a bar, she was dressed for a boardroom. Sleek navy business suit, posture poised but exhausted, delicate watch glinting on her wrist. But it was her eyes that caught him, eyes that looked like they hadn't rested in months. She sat 2 stools away, not ordering a drink, simply staring at the wood grain on the counter as if she was afraid her thoughts might swallow her whole. Her name, though he didn't know it yet, was Mara Ellington, CEO of Ellington Technologies, one of the largest companies in the region. But in that quiet moment, she wasn't a CEO. She wasn't wealthy or important. She was just a woman who looked like she had forgotten what it felt like to be seen as a person rather than a position. Roman didn't approach her. He wasn't that kind of man. Instead, he silently returned to his glass of water. He couldn't afford anything else. But when Mara glanced sideways and noticed the grief etched into his expression, something inside her softened. She hadn't spoken to a stranger in years. Her life was meetings, numbers, decisions, expectations. Conversations were strategic. Smiles were for optics. She couldn't remember the last time someone had asked her how she was and actually meant it. She moved 1 stool closer without thinking. Roman noticed, uncertain whether to meet her eyes. He didn't want pity, he didn't want judgment, but when he finally looked up, he didn't see either. He saw understanding. For a moment it felt like he could breathe again. Sunlight fell over the bar as if blessing the unlikely moment between 2 people who had no reason to meet, yet somehow they did. And that moment would change everything. Roman had never been good at hiding his emotions, so when Mara gently asked if he was okay, the truth spilled out of him more honestly than he expected. Not details, not complaints, just a quiet, "It's been a long day." Mara nodded, and in that nod was a truth of her own. Her days had been long for years. They didn't exchange full stories, they didn't need to. Sometimes 2 wounded souls recognize each other without explanation. They sat there for nearly an hour, speaking softly, sharing fragments of their lives without realizing how much they were revealing. He talked about his daughter, June, the brightest spot in his world. Mara talked about how she lost herself in her career, caring for a company that never cared for her back. She admitted she rarely heard the sound of her own laughter anymore. Roman didn't flirt. He didn't brag. He didn't pretend to be anything he wasn't. And maybe that was what struck Mara the most. Everyone in her life wanted something from her. Approval, money, power, connections. Roman wanted nothing. He simply listened, and for the first time in a very long time, she felt human again. But reality didn't care about quiet, fragile connections. Roman had to leave early to pick up his daughter from school. Mara watched him gather his worn jacket, watched the tired but sincere smile he gave her before leaving. She didn't even get his last name. It felt like watching sunlight disappear behind a closing door. She didn't know why, but as she sat alone again, she felt an ache she hadn't expected, an ache that whispered, "Go after him." But Mara Ellington never chased anything. She was chased by investors, by board members, by responsibilities, but never people, and certainly not men. Yet when she walked back into the empty halls of her penthouse that evening, the silence felt sharper than usual. She made tea, but it didn't help. She opened her laptop but couldn't focus. She tried reading, cooking, even answering emails she usually ignored. Nothing soothed the restlessness twisting in her chest. The truth hit her with unsettling clarity. She missed him. A stranger. A single dad with tired eyes and gentle words. She didn't even know why she cared, but she did. All night she replayed their conversation. His sincerity, the calm steadiness about him. It felt like someone had briefly lifted her out of the life that suffocated her, and once lifted, she couldn't bear to sink back in. The next afternoon, Mara found herself standing outside the same bar. She told herself it was just curiosity, nothing more. She told herself she simply needed fresh air, a break, a moment. But deep down, she knew she was looking for him, searching for something real in a world filled with pretense. When she walked inside and didn't see him, disappointment swept through her. She almost left, almost. But then the door opened behind her, and she heard a familiar voice thanking the bartender for calling him back about the part-time dishwasher job he'd applied for. Roman froze when he recognized her. She froze too. For a heartbeat, they stared at each other, both equally surprised. Mara wasn't supposed to be there. Not in a bar at 2 in the afternoon, not in a place far outside her world of skyscrapers and private elevators. Yet she stepped closer with a hesitant smile that didn't look like a CEO's smile. It looked shy, hopeful. Roman couldn't help smiling back. They talked again, this time longer. He told her about the new challenges, June's school program, his rent, the pressure of trying to do everything alone. Mara listened with genuine empathy, not pity. She admired his strength more than he realized. In turn, she opened up about her own loneliness, her fear of never being seen beyond her title. Roman didn't treat her like a corporate figure. He treated her like a person. Over the next weeks, their lives began intertwining in ways neither expected. Mara started visiting the bar more often, always during the day, always searching for the quiet presence she found comforting. Roman grew more open with her, surprised that someone like her cared about someone like him. They began meeting outside the bar, once at a park where June timidly hid behind her father's leg, and then again at a small street cafe where Mara laughed more freely than she had in years. Daytime meetings became their thing, simple moments under the sun, conversations that lasted longer every time, smiles that lingered even after they parted ways. But life, as always, had its storms. One afternoon, Roman received a notice that his daughter's special program fees were due immediately. It was far more than he could afford. He spent hours pacing his apartment, torn between heartbreak and helplessness. When Mara found him sitting outside the bar, shoulders shaking, he didn't have the strength to pretend he was okay. He didn't want her help. He didn't want to feel like a charity case. But Mara didn't offer money. She offered support. She offered presence. She offered understanding. She told him he was a good father, something he hadn't heard in years. And then she surprised him. She used her connections to get June evaluated by specialists who determined she qualified for a fully funded program based on her learning needs. Mara didn't boast about it. She simply handed Roman the letter and said softly, "You and June deserve this." Roman's hands shook as he read it. He wanted to argue, to refuse, but the gratitude overwhelmed him. No one had ever stepped into his life like that. No one had ever cared enough. Their bond grew stronger. Lives that once ran in opposite directions slowly aligned into something warm, steady, and quietly beautiful. But when word spread that the CEO of Ellington Technologies had been seen spending time with a local dishwasher and single father, rumors bloomed like poison. Mara's board frowned upon it. Her assistant warned her that dating someone beneath her class could damage her image. People whispered, judged, criticized. For the first time, Roman pulled away, believing he was dragging her down. He didn't answer her calls. He avoided the bar when she might be there. He convinced himself that distance would protect her, but Mara didn't want protecting. She wanted him. In a bold move that shocked everyone in her corporate world,